We are here on the parlor level of this brownstone located in Boston's South End. We're calling this level 3 because we have one level below us, which is the street level, and a level below us but below that is the basement level. But this is the parlor, and you can see the kitchen is in the back left corner of the home. But this section right here was actually wallpapered just as of yesterday. Painters came in. Thankfully, the stuff was installed properly. So what that means is it comes off easily. Came right off. We're prepping the walls, we're patching the walls, and we're gonna be applying this, it's actually a stock profile panel molding, as well as a half round detail that's going to kind of not replicate, but complement the ceiling detail, which is all this ornate plaster molding. We have a curved wall here in the front section of the home, and for that we actually are using Duraflex made by Resin Art, which is a curved molding profile. It can be curved both directions, but the nice thing is Anderson McQuaid, who supplied all this millwork or this trim, stocks this profile because they also stock it in the poplar. We're doing the parlor level. We're also doing a television room down on level 2. We're going to be installing the panel molding down there. We're also dealing with the curb wall down in that section. And finally, the level above us is where the master bedroom is. So basically the front half of this house, all 3 of these levels are going to receive this panel molding, as well as some baseboard details that were poorly executed in a previous renovation prior to this client purchasing this home. So we're gonna remove those details, apply the correct base cap. We have that in curved as well because we're dealing with a curved section in the basement. So as far as carpentry, that's basically our scope here. Some panel molding, some miscellaneous finished carpentry, preparing for paint. Now, paint is really our biggest focus on this project. This entire place has been, or is in the process of being prepped for paint. As you can see under me, we have this fiber reinforced floor protection. The painters came in, they did 100% protection on the entire space. And that's important because the floors were recently refinished prior to their purchase. We don't want to damage those, and we want the painters to work efficiently. So getting ahead of paint and getting in here to protect everything is super important to us. We also are doing a bunch of electrical. We're replacing a bunch of these surface mounted fixtures. We're installing a ton of recessed lighting. It was poorly lit in here. It was super dark. You can see on the windows that, and this is common throughout the entire space, is that they have these shutters. So, actually on this level, including the kitchen behind me, these shutters are going to be removed because there's a ton of natural light that they're losing, even with the shutters open. The main space, which is pretty common these days, is going to be very bright and white, different shades of white. The bedrooms are going to be a darker color, which is going to be, a particular shade of gray. I'll add those colors down in the bottom when we do our final reveal, so you guys can, because I know you guys are going to ask. The ceiling, the walls, the trim, it's all going to be the same color, just a different sheen. So you're going to get that, consistent gray throughout, but it will have a different sheen depending on whether it's satin for the trim. I think we're doing an eggshell on the wall, and then a ceiling flat for all the ceilings. So we're going to run upstairs, check in with the electricians, and see what they're working on. Actually, real quick, before we do go, why don't we jump into this kitchen here? We're gonna be talking about this upstairs. So you can see above us, there's been a ton of recessed lights cut in. And the biggest challenge these days is everything is based on layout. And when you're dealing with an old home, especially an old building like this, when you cut a hole for recessed light, you're not always able to fit a can in there. So we're gonna talk with Brian and Derek real quickly about, how do we handle that situation? When we cut something, we find a floor joist, what are we doing to rectify that? Do we have to move the light, or is there a better option? So let's run upstairs and figure out what that option is. We were just down in the kitchen talking about the recessed lights that we added. Brian, you talked to me the other day about how some of those lights, they're all dictated on layout. The designer came in, laid them out very specifically, had a particular order she wanted them in, but we ran into issues. Those issues were floor joist. How do we rectify that?
So nowadays they have these LED thin recessed lights.
Okay.
They're also called wafer lights. They can fit anywhere with like a 1/2 inch clearance.
So we're not dealing with cans at all in that situation. So one question I know I'm gonna get is, why not just install those everywhere?
Not everyone likes the look.
Okay.
So when they first came out, it's like a flat LED panel.
Yep.
So it has no baffle to it. But now they're coming out with more.
So
Some of them now have like a little baffle to it, but they, you know, when you add the baffle,
yeah.
the module gets bigger.
So we're still, but as far, I mean, traditionally in the homes here in Boston, we're dealing with 3/4 inch strapping below the floor joist, and then, you know, 1/2 inch, 5/8, maybe 3/4, depending on the area, of plaster. So at that point, you can have you can have up to 1.5 inches, which is great, because if they're fitting in a 1/2 inch space, that gives us plenty of room to increase and have a larger baffle. So up here, we've removed, what, a surface light?
Yep, there's a surface light in the middle. We're gonna move that smoke detector to the middle and add 2 recessed lights on each end of the hallway. We shouldn't run into any problems with joist or strapping or anything like that.
In here. So we actually did this at the lower level. We are currently on level 5. We're at the top. So the roof deck above us. So level 4, we just completed this. We moved the smoke detector and then spaced the recessed lighting accordingly. One thing we always run into when we're doing renovations is, obviously we're dealing with a ceiling that's already plastered, and sometimes we're dealing with, you know, a client that might still live in that project. So this thing, what'd you guys call this? A dust bowl. A dust bowl. So this goes on prior to your 4-inch hole. So are you using a 4 1/4 or?
4 1/4.
4 1/4 for your 4-inch recessed light. That goes on prior. You get your 4 1/4 hole saw in here. When you push this up against the ceiling, and you pull that trigger, all your dust is collected in that bowl. You can drop it down, dump it into a trash can, or a vacuum, or on the floor if you're a pig, right? So they're gonna lay out our 2 new locations for our recessed lighting, and we'll get a shot of this in action.